They told me to wait in the airport lounge. Just stay here. Mom Adams said, his voice sharp with that practiced patience. The kind used for old people, toddlers, or anyone no longer useful. Lisa, his wife, offered a tight smile. We'll sort the bags and boarding passes. Be right back. I nodded. Of course I nodded. That's what you do when your own son gives you orders like you're a child. You obey. Because you don't want to make trouble. Because you believe, maybe foolishly, that they still care. So I waited. I sat between a dusty fake plant and a vending machine that ate my dollar. The overhead TV blinked through static cycling weather reports for cities I'd never visit. Behind me, a toddler wailed while his father scrolled through his phone. Unmoved, I clutched my small leather bag like a lifeline. I had packed 3 days earlier, ironed every blouse, checked my medications, brought snacks no one wanted, wore the matching t-shirt Lisa made for me. Vacation Nana in hideous pink glitter. It was meant to be our big family trip, a memory. But by hour 2, something shifted in me. An ache not in my knees but in my chest. At first I made excuses. Maybe they got stuck at security. Maybe the kids needed the restroom. Maybe the boarding process was longer than expected. But hour 3 passed, then hour 4. I asked the desk attendant to page my son. Her polite smile flickered when I said his name. She tapped the keyboard, then looked up gently, cautiously. They boarded the 1:45 to Honolulu, ma'am. It's already departed. I remember standing still for several seconds, not breathing, not blinking, just staring through the words. They left, I whispered. Yes, she said softly. I'm sorry. But she wasn't sorry. She didn't need to be, because this wasn't her shame. It was mine. It wasn't an accident, not a misunderstanding. I knew my son well. He remembered birthdays, carried spreadsheets in his head. He didn't forget people. He removed them. And now I had been removed. I found the nearest restroom stall, locked it, and sat. Not to cry. I couldn't even cry. I just needed silence. A place where no one would look at me like I was broken. Or worse, like I was invisible. 8 hours. That's how long I waited. 8 hours for someone who never planned to come back. But what they didn't realize is that something inside me had been waiting longer than that. Waiting for a moment when I'd finally be forced to see the truth and choose something else. Anything else. Even if it meant walking alone. I left the lounge without looking back. The hallway stretched ahead, sterile and humming. I walked slowly, not from age, but from weight. The kind that doesn't settle in your bones, but in your spirit. The kind that comes from being made to feel like excess baggage. Outside the window, planes lifted into skies I was never meant to reach. I paused at a departure board. Rows of destinations glowed in blue and white. One name stopped me, Portland, a city I hadn't seen in over 40 years. It used to mean something. It used to be mine in a way Honolulu never was. I walked to the counter. 1 ticket to Portland, I said, trying not to sound like a woman who had just been left behind. The young woman behind the counter hesitated. Round trip. No, I said. Just one way. She nodded, tapped keys, and gave me the price. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a worn leather wallet, and slid her a card. Not Adams. Not the joint account. My card. My money. The one I'd kept hidden since the day after his wedding, just in case. As she processed the ticket, I turned off my phone. No texts, no missed calls. Of course not. They weren't worried. They weren't coming back. At the gate, I sat in silence. People came and went. Families laughed. Couples bickered. Children dozed on tablet-covered laps. No one looked at me. No one asked. It was strangely a relief. Just before boarding, I went into the restroom, took off the bright pink shirt, and shoved it deep into the trash. I put on a soft gray sweater instead, one I had packed for the plane in case it got cold. I wanted to feel like myself again, whoever that was. On the plane, I stared out the window. The city lights blurred beneath us as we lifted off. 8 hours ago, I had thought I was flying to paradise. But paradise isn't real if you have to beg for a seat. No, I wasn't going to paradise. I was going somewhere real, somewhere no one had assigned me a role, somewhere I chose. I landed in Portland just past 10 p.m. The airport was smaller than I remembered, or maybe I had grown not in size, but in awareness. Once this place had felt so big, so full of possibility. Now it felt quiet, like a sigh that had finally been released. Outside the air was damp and cool. It had just rained. The scent of wet pavement and pine trees hit me all at once. I stood under the concrete awning, letting the night settle into my lungs. No one waited for me. And for once that wasn't sad. It was freeing. I sat on a bench just outside the terminal. My carry-on, the same brown leather bag Adam used to mock, sat beside me, weathered and loyal. I pulled out my wallet and stared at a folded piece of paper I hadn't looked at in years. 1849 Quinn Street. My first apartment after I married Derek. I didn't even know if it still existed, but I brought the address anyway, like muscle memory. I flagged a taxi and gave the driver the paper. He didn't ask questions, just nodded and drove. The city passed by in streaks of gold and red. Neon signs, late-night diners, coffee shops that refused to sleep. When we arrived, the building looked tired but still standing. The porch sagged a little. The shutters had lost their color, but the number 1849 was still nailed above the door, like it had always been waiting. I climbed the steps slowly. My hip complained, but I made it. The door opened before I knocked. A woman in her 60s stood there with a cigarette in one hand and a cat winding between her ankles. She squinted at me. "You're the old lady I suppose I am." She shrugged. "Come in then. Let's see if we can tolerate each other." I smiled. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. Joyce, that was her name, didn't ask many questions. She led me down a narrow hallway with peeling floral wallpaper and into a room that smelled faintly of lavender and fried onions. Not unpleasant, just lived in. The floor creaked. The ceiling fan clicked in slow circles. A small bed sat against the wall covered in mismatched quilts. A wooden chair, a chipped dresser, and a single window with heavy curtains completed the space. "You want it, it's yours," she said. $200 a week. Cash. No funny business. You out, we're clear. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope I had tucked there before leaving the airport. Inside were 5 crisp 20s. I handed them to her. She didn't count them, just folded them once and shoved them into her back pocket. "You hungry?" I hadn't eaten since breakfast. "I could eat," I said. She nodded and disappeared into the kitchen. 10 minutes later, she returned with 2 grilled cheese sandwiches and a saucepan of tomato soup. We ate at the little kitchen table under a yellowed ceiling light. She didn't talk, and neither did I. It was peaceful. For years, meals had been chaotic, children needing cutting, Adam arguing about politics, Lisa calculating calories aloud. I often ate in silence anyway, my words buried under their noise. But here the silence wasn't cold. It was safe. When we finished, Joyce slid me a key. "You're in," she said. "Keep the bathroom tidy. Don't wake the cat." I nodded. That night I lay on the lumpy bed staring at the ceiling. A quiet fan above a cat purring in the hallway and the sound of rain tapping the window. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring. But for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid of it. I woke before dawn, out of habit more than necessity. The house was quiet save for the hum of the old fridge and the occasional creak of Joyce's slippers. I tiptoed to the kitchen, brewed a pot of coffee, and sat by the window as gray light began to touch the sky. I hadn't worked in over 15 years, but something in me stirred. Not restlessness, not regret, just readiness. After breakfast, I went for a walk down the block. 3 stores in, I saw at a small corner cafe with a flickering neon sign that read, "Open early." Inside it was no frills. 3 booths, a few red-cushioned bar stools, a scratched counter, and the smell of burnt toast and hope. A young woman in an apron was wiping the counter. "You hiring?" I asked. She looked up a little startled. "You want to apply?" "Yes." She called to the back. A moment later, a broad-shouldered woman emerged, her hair in a messy bun, name tag reading Heather. "You got experience?" I smiled. I raised 3 kids, hosted PTA breakfasts, and ran my church's soup kitchen for 8 years. Heather studied me, then nodded. "Keep your hair back. No perfume? Refill cups before they ask. If someone tips less than $1, that's on you." She tossed me a faded apron and pointed to the coffee machine. Just like that, I had a job. No interview. No resume. Just willingness and a pair of steady hands. The shift passed in a blur of clinking cups and soft conversation. The regulars were quiet, tired workers, truckers, a young couple with matching tattoos. No one asked why I was there. No one looked surprised to see me. That felt good. By the end of the morning, I was exhausted, but in the honest, bone-deep kind of way that reminded you I am still useful. I am still here. 2 weeks passed. The ache in my feet began to fade, replaced by a steady rhythm. Pour, wipe, smile, repeat. I began to know the regulars. The man who only drank chamomile tea. The woman who read romance novels and left $2 tips. The young boy who came in after school and quietly did his homework. One morning, I found a small envelope on my nightstand. Inside, a note from Kieran, my grandson. "Grandma, I don't know what happened. Mom's been weird. Dad's mad. But I hope you're okay. I miss you." At the bottom, he'd scribbled a new phone number. I sat holding the letter for a long time, not crying, just breathing. I didn't call, not yet, but I folded the note carefully and placed it back in the drawer. Later that day, Heather handed me a warm cinnamon roll wrapped in foil. "Too many," she muttered. "Take one." That was her way of saying, "You belong." It was a small gesture, but after years of being overlooked, small things meant more than they should have. The next day, I stood at the register, counting change, when Heather leaned over and whispered, "You've got a visitor." I turned slowly. A man stood near the entrance in a gray windbreaker, looking lost. It was Kieran. Taller than I remembered, hair longer, eyes unsure. He didn't see me at first. He scanned the cafe, and when our eyes met, his shoulders dropped. I walked toward him. "Grandma, I'm here, darling." And for the first time in years, I felt seen. Kieran stayed for just an hour. We sat at a booth near the window, sunlight streaking across our coffee cups. He didn't ask a million questions. He didn't try to explain his parents' behavior. He just listened. He told me he'd been worried, that Lisa had been acting strange ever since the airport, that Adam was angry pacing the house like something had gone terribly wrong, though no one said what. I think Kieran said they're more scared of your silence than they were of your presence. I laughed, not bitterly, just softly. Maybe I said, "It's amazing how loud a quiet woman can be when she finally stops apologizing." Before he left, Kieran slipped something into my hand. A hotel key card. "I'm in town until tomorrow. In case you change your mind." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just held it. That night, I opened the drawer beside my bed and took out the old phone. There were messages, voicemails, emails. Even a letter from Adam forwarded through someone at the post office. It wasn't an apology. It was a performance. He wrote that I had embarrassed the family, that I had caused unnecessary drama, that Lisa had cried every night on vacation, and the children were confused. There was no mention of the lounge, no word about the 8 hours I waited. Just one sentence at the end. We're willing to talk, but only if you're ready to be reasonable. I folded the letter and put it away. Then I sat down, opened a notebook, and wrote my own letter. I didn't mail it, but it helped. Kieran left early the next morning. We didn't say goodbye in the dramatic way movies show. No long speeches, no tears. We hugged in the motel lobby while a vacuum cleaner hummed down the hallway. It was a small moment, but it mattered. Be good to yourself, I whispered. You too, Grandma, he replied. Finally. Back at the cafe, Heather handed me a new apron, dark green, thick cotton with my name stitched in the corner. Clearance bin, she muttered. But it suits you. I smiled. Joyce greeted me that evening with 2 mugs of tea, and Franklin the cat perched on her lap. She pointed toward the porch. Looks like someone's still writing, she said, nodding at the open notebook beside me. I had started writing every night, not just letter stories, things I never told anyone, memories I didn't even know were still inside me. It wasn't about revenge. It was about remembering and rewriting. Because the truth is, I wasn't abandoned. I was released, and I wasn't rebuilding the life they threw away. I was building something new, on my own terms, with my name stitched into the corner. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. The cafe was nearly empty, just Arthur in the corner booth and a young couple whispering over blueberry muffins. I was refilling sugar caddies when I heard the bell above the door. I turned. It was Lisa. She didn't look like the woman from the airport. No designer sunglasses, no polished attitude, just a tired face and an umbrella dripping on the floor. Can we talk? She asked. You're talking now, I said. She winced. Privately, I nodded to the back booth. She slid into the seat across from me like she was bracing for a storm. Her hands were pale and restless. I didn't know Adam was going to do that, she said. I said nothing. I wasn't trying to replace you, she added after a pause. I just didn't want your shadow in every room. That was the closest thing to honesty I had ever heard from her. I stood up ready to leave her with her thoughts. But then I turned back. I'm not your shadow, Lisa. I'm my own person, and I finally remembered how to be one. She didn't follow me. She didn't cry. She just sat there blinking. I walked out front, tied my apron tighter, and poured Arthur another cup of coffee. He smiled without asking what happened. And for once, I didn't feel like explaining. A week later, I cashed my first paycheck. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every dollar earned by my hands, not filtered through anyone else's needs, moods, or demands. I went to the bank and transferred a small amount to an account under Kieran's name. The teller looked at me and smiled. Sending something special. Yes, I said, for someone who still sees me. That night I walked home in my dark green apron, the one with my name stitched in the corner. It was chilly, just enough to make me feel alive. Franklin the cat waited for me on the porch, and Joyce waved from the kitchen. Look at you, she said, walking like a woman who's going somewhere. I laughed. Maybe I am. That weekend we baked 2 apple cakes and brought them to the community center. People asked for the recipe. I told them it was classified. Joyce winked and said, "It tastes like freedom." And it did. Somewhere far away, Adam and Lisa might still be wondering what happened. Let them. Because I didn't disappear. I didn't make a scene. I just left. And for once, no one followed. And I didn't look back. Because this life, this one is mine. With my name on it.